so rewarding.
Yeah, just the rewarding aspect of empowering them that they can, you know. I mean, there's our
they
students
can
with
do
visual impairment,
anything.
they can do anything just in a different way.
Right.
They're gonna learn different skills and maybe have different tools, like the cane being the most the tool with the largest contribution to their independence when it comes to their travel.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, Braille, teaching them to read, like, hello, they're going to do everything that anyone else is going to do, just in their own way.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the Vision Mission. Today we have two amazing guests here today, and we're going to talk about some awesome stuff. But I want you guys to introduce yourselves and tell me a little bit your position here at CCVI.
I'm Hannah Beresford, and I am a orientation and mobility specialist here at CCVI. So I work with students on their orientation, navigation, and travel skills.
I'm Kelsey Bink. I'm a certified teacher of the visually impaired. So I work with kids kindergarten to age 7, preparing them for that transition to the school district.
Nice. And you guys have both been at CCVI for like a couple of years now. More than 3?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. I was here previously as a teaching assistant.
Oh,
From 2010 to 2013.
Okay.
So I was here as the TA, and I left, and I went to Independence for 9 years.
Okay.
And then I came back last summer.
Yeah.
So.
We'll talk more about that later.
Yeah.
But I'm just finishing my second year as an O&M here at CCVI after interning here before that.
Nice.
So.
And did you intern just like one time before, and then you're just kind of like fell in love and wanted to work here? Or do you also go someplace else?
No, I just interned here. It kind of just all worked out. Part of which we don't have to go too deep into it, but the certification process to become an O&M is a 350-hour internship. So it took me from about August to November, and I was doing it here. And luckily we have our MOVE program here. So I was able to work in the community as well. So working with students ranging from the Missouri First Steps age. So pretty much birth to 18. Right there in my internship. And it was just exactly what I needed. And it felt like a dream job, you know. It's when it doesn't feel like you're working and it doesn't feel like a job, you know, you're right where you need to be. So
that is really true. We love whenever your jobs don't actually feel like a job.
Exactly.
So I had heard that you guys like were at the same school district before coming to CCVI. Was that independent?
Yes.
Yeah.
So did you guys know each other? Is that how you guys met there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about like your time like starting at especially you, Kelsey, like starting at the school district before actually coming here to teach rather than being a teacher assistant and everything. What has that kind of been like?
It's been great. It's been great to have that comparison between the school district and, you know, our setting, because our setting is much different than the district. It's been great coming back from the district and having that knowledge, that background knowledge of the district. So, but I met Hannah in the independent school district, and she was the functional skills teacher. So I'll let her talk first, and then I'll piggyback off her.
Yeah, so I taught for 3 years in the independent school district as a functional skills special education teacher. So meaning just self-contained special ed, kind of had students with a variety of disabilities from moderate to severe. And that occasionally includes students with visual impairments. In this specific case of how Kelsey and I met, it did. But it doesn't always, you know, it's just kind of a self-contained special education classroom, students with all sorts of needs and different therapies. But I had a student who actually is a CCVI alum who went here once upon a time. So a lot of teachers and therapists here know him. And it was my second year teaching. And Kelsey also worked with him because she was starting her TVI program. So she can jump in and talk a little bit about that.
So I had the same student when he was 3 here at CCVI.
Oh, while you were a teacher?
Yeah, while I was a TA. So it came back full circle.
Really?
Yeah. So I walked in her classroom and I was like, oh my gosh, I know him. It was so exciting. So yeah, I started working. I started my TVI program in 2020. And so I came into Hannah's classroom as an itinerant teacher of the visually impaired. So I was traveling around the district, seeing different kids in different schools. So I would come in for 30 minutes every day and work with the student that Hannah had in her classroom. And our friendship kind of just grew off of that because she was really interested in what I was doing and how he was learning and all of that stuff. So I was actually trying to get my hours. So I was kind of like interning as the TVI. So I was kind of doing my hours and all of that. And then I was fully his instructor after that year. But
it kind of just all fell into place because as a SPED teacher without any background training in vision. She was a former SPED teacher who was having the training in vision and already in this vision program. We just kind of collaborated because I was, from a functional skills teacher's perspective, I was like, how do I reach and teach this student who has multiple disabilities, including intellectual and a little bit of physical and the visual impairment piece. And so we were kind of like, okay, let's tag team. Let's work together. How can we just bridge this gap? Because how can we work together and make sure that his education is as accessible and meaningful as possible? And so then I just kind of chose, okay, I'm just going to dive in. I'm going to learn about, the TVI world and the O&M world, which at the time I didn't know were technically two separate fields. I mean, you can be a dual certified teacher with visually impaired and O&M, but you also can be just an O&M and obviously just a TVI. You've got examples right here. Yeah. But so another teacher who I guess was Kelsey's mentor kind of through her program wore that double hat of the TVI and O&M. And so I asked her, because I was like, what in the world is orientation and mobility? I mean, it sounds, you can kind of make your assumptions based off that, but I was like, I want to go on some lessons and learn what this is all about so that I can model the language and use the same prompting in the classroom with him. And it'll just kind of teach me how to reach and teach him and meet him where he's at. And so I went on some lessons, and when she basically explained to me that she was kind of like, well, if you're so interested, there's a huge need in this field of orientation and mobility. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, tell me more. Right. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're not just like that one vision person that does it all? And she's like, well, she did because she was a TVI and O&M, but they're also two separate fields. And so long story short, she kind of sent me some information just about the field and about the programs in the area. And then I was like, okay, this is what I want to do, because I love my job as a SPED teacher, but I knew I wanted to kind of specialize in something. I knew I wanted to do something that was kind of more one-on-one, because that was my favorite part of my job. And so learning about O&M being a one-on-one specialty, and then just going on some lessons and seeing the impact and the strides that kids can make with that very specified, unique training and understanding where they are and where they want to go. So once I kind of made that decision, I came to Kelsey, and it was probably not even that long, probably like just a few weeks. Yeah. And I was like, so I'm applying to the Missouri State Orientation and Mobility Program. And I remember the day Kelsey was like, what? I was like, so excited.
And I told her I had all the books for it, so she didn't need to buy any of the books.
Yeah, she saved me so much money.
I did.
Oh my gosh.
So she was like, hey, I have this class, and this class. What books do you have? So I gave her all my books I had.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So yeah,
so that worked out great.
Yeah.
But, no kidding.
And then she came here, and then she would text me. She's like, hey, I think there's going to be an opening. So, of course, she's like, you should totally come back. So then I applied, and here we are.
Yeah. And she had told me about CCVI too when I just needed hours at the beginning. I just needed observation hours before I was even to the point of interning or applying for jobs. She was like, well, I worked at CCVI and it was amazing. And that's actually where the student that we worked with, that's where he went. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to learn more about this place. Yeah. So really learned from her. And so then I just kind of reached out to the director of therapy services and was like, hey, I'm a SPED teacher, but I'm needing to get some observation hours and O&M. And right away, CCVI loves to show all the wonderful things that they do here with students. And so we got together, and I think it was spring break at the time that the school district was on spring break, but CCVI wasn't. So it was the perfect opportunity for me to get a whole week's worth of observation. And that's when I came here and I was like, okay, this is for me. I really love this. I love everything that this place stands for and what they do, and it was just so much fun. And so
I pointed her here, and she brought me back. So
I came here. Yep.
So we credit each other for our success.
No, honestly, I love that.
That's right. She pointed me in the right direction, and I took her right with me.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm glad that you guys are both back here. And that's so cool that just one kid really just full circle
changed
for both
the whole thing.
That is awesome.
And
he happens to have went here too.
Which is, right?
Yeah.
It's just that impact of what one kid can do to so many different people and their lives, their careers and everything. Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I know.
We learn from our students.
Yeah.
What do they say?
And each other.
There's some saying that says something like, we teach them all about the world, but they teach us what life is all about, or something like that. And it's
I like that.
I know.
I like that quote.
Yeah.
You said that.
Something like that.
Right. Yeah. So since you guys both were kind of had that background in public school, do you think that's helped how you worked here? Kind of having that dual knowledge of the wide range of disabilities in kids and intellectual, physical, be what it may, but then also just an age and everything.
Oh, absolutely. So in Independence, I was early childhood special ed. So I taught that in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I traveled to all these different schools. So I had like a first grader, a third grader, a fourth, like I had a different age range. So it was good to have like my littles in the morning and then, my older kids in the afternoon. So it's good to have that knowledge because coming here, we're like, oh, but when they transition to the school district, this is what it's going to look like. So we can tell our students' teams, the collaborative teams, we can tell them what that might look like so they can help us get prepared for that student. So I think having that district background knowledge is so valuable.
And just the whole process of the IEP process and, like you said, the transition process and knowing what it looks like and even being able to support families through knowing, they're going to be able to provide these services and these therapies and kind of trying to ease them through that. As someone who has been there and experienced, especially because not all of them, but, some of our students could end up in a functional skills type setting, depending on what that looks like for them and their district and their level of need. But it's definitely nice to be able to tell parents, hey, I've been there, and kind of help to support them in just the whole advocacy
and give
process.
them reassurance that this may be a big transition for your child and you, but in the end, it will be okay. It will be okay.
And it's kind of fun because we've kind of seen a glimpse into the future of some of our students and where they can end up and how far they can go. And that definitely is helpful.
I'm sure. And I'm sure for parents too, like knowing you've been in the field, you've been in the public schools, so like you've seen it with your own eyes, you're not just saying like, it'll be okay. Like, you
I
can
think
actually
so anyway.
I think it'll probably maybe, like you have that experience.
Yeah.
And
I think parents do value that.
And like some kiddos that I've had this school year, like those transitions to the district, like going into those meetings, like I know what to quote unquote fight for. Like, I know what those kids need, so I'm going to go to battle for those kids and give them what they, hopefully give them what they need and or communicate that to the district. And after those meetings, the parents are always like, thank you so much. Like, we are on the same page. Like, we appreciate that so much.
I'm sure. Like, having someone in your corner is awesome, especially when, like, you know what you're talking about and, like, you know the kid as well. Like, you have that bond, and that's just
And I think in early intervention, too, it's so impactful because so many of these families are kind of going through, I mean, it's either the grieving or the processing of my student has a visual impairment or my student has a disability at all, and they're going to face challenges, but just the more and more people they have in their corner, I think earlier on.
And celebrating the little things. Like, even though my child can't do X, Y, Z, they are doing, you know, all of these other things. So
and we always know to work hard to start with the strengths. And let's talk about, we're going to talk about a lot of things that your child struggles with, but let's also talk about what they can do and how, what gifts they do have and what they bring.
I love that about like your guys' work, especially because I feel like a lot of times when parents get like that initial like diagnosis, it's like, well, your kid can't do this. Don't expect them to do
it's just
this.
stone cold.
And it's just negative, and you're just like, well, what can they do? Like, and then coming here, I feel like a lot of parents like receive that hope of like, oh, well, they can do this, and could do this, and like you guys actually help them to do these things. And that's just really incredible. But here's a question then. So like how, because you guys are both super passionate about what you do. I can just tell like how excited you are. You're like,
we kind of like our jobs.
Just a little.
So like what like started you guys down this path? I know you weren't originally a teacher of the visually impaired or an O&M, but like what started you down this path of kind of, I guess like the general field of like special ed and everything?
Do you want to go first?
You go right ahead. Okay. You came into the field first.
So when I started working here as a TA, I was in Gayla's classroom, and she's since retired and she travels the world. But I started in Gayla's classroom, and I was coming in being an elementary ed major because I wanted to teach like K first or second. Like that's what I thought I wanted to do. But then I started working in Gayla's classroom, and I was like, oh, I love these kids so much. And so I ended up changing my major to early childhood special ed. And so I worked through my undergrad while I was here. And then through working here and then transitioning to independence, they needed a early childhood sped vision person. So I was that person for years until they finally asked me to go ahead and just get my certification. And I just fell in love with the vision field in general. Just because it's always changing. It's always evolving. Like, there's constant changes. It's never the same. Vision changes all the time. Just like the interventions can change all the time. The assistive tech changes all the time. New diagnoses. Like, it's always evolving and always changing. So we always have to be on our toes, and we always have to be, like, learning. And, like, that professional development, you have to do it outside of work as well. Like, you can't just do it at work. You have to do it outside of work. Just to make sure you're, like, on your toes.
Keeping up with the times and staying on the cutting edge.
It's such a specialized field too. Like
it really
like
is.
Hannah said, like I wanted something specialized instead of just that special education umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
It's so specialized, and I fell in love with that too. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I guess kind of had a similar start to just being in elementary education. I mean, before that, I kind of, being like an athlete in high school, I was like, oh, I want to be an athletic trainer. Like I want to work with sports. And so then I had some, like my first job was being a soccer coach, just to kids. And there was kind of a group of kids and they were like, well, these kids, that one little boy has autism and, so-and-so doesn't want to be their coach. And I'm like, so what? I'll be his coach. I don't care if he has autism. I was like, we're going to have fun and learn how to play soccer. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of jumped right in and I just remember the families being like, wow, like you just didn't treat him like, treat him like he was any different. It was just like he was a kid on your team and he has unique needs and quirks, but you just jumped right in and made it fun. And I was just kind of like, okay, maybe I kind of enjoy, kind of first working with kids, which is then I was like, okay, maybe not athletic training. That sounds like a lot of science. Not that science isn't cool, but I was like, okay, so maybe I want to work with kids and be a teacher. And then kind of having that experience in the back of my mind, I have a cousin who is on the autism spectrum herself. So she kind of growing up alongside her, she wanted to do everything I wanted to do. And I guess that honestly, probably having her, she is probably, I think 10 years younger than me. So kind of growing up, I guess, being around her. Yeah. And I guess she kind of inspired me that it's like, I don't have to treat you like anybody else. And I don't have to be intimidated by disabilities like a lot of people are, which is sad. But, I was like, no, I see her for who she is. And so just kind of that experience in addition to, I guess so that's kind of what geared me towards education and then special education. And then I talked a little bit about getting into the vision field. But in addition to working with the student that went here that she and I both worked with, my grandma lost her vision to macular degeneration when she was in her late 50s, early 60s. She kind of slowly lost it until she was legally blind. And there towards the end, she was completely night blind. So if it was dim lighting, she couldn't see at all. And so everywhere we'd go, she'd be like, Hannah, be my eyes. And so I would kind of guide her around. So I would always say like, oh, I've been in O&M pretty much my whole life, guiding my grandma. Didn't even know, not using any specific techniques or strategies that I know now that I wish I knew back then. But
and then your mom was a para for...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, glad you brought that up to me. So my mom was also a teacher. And when I was in my undergrad, just getting observation hours just to be a special education major, my mom was a one-on-one for a little guy who had cortical visual impairment and multiple disabilities, a lot like what you might see here at CCVI. And I was just kind of there observing at that school just to get observation hours for SPED. And there was a vision specialist at the time, which I don't know at the time if she was a TVI or O&M or both or either one, but she kind of said something to me and was like, hey, did you know there's a huge need in the vision field? And this was when I was a sophomore in my undergrad and I was just kind of deciding, okay, I'm going to be a special ed teacher. And so I kind of just told her, I was like, yeah, that's actually really cool. And she's like, there's a huge need in the vision field. And she was just kind of doing different activities, kind of having him visually track and scan for things. And I just kind of put that in the back of my head and I was kind of like, okay, that's good, noted. Yeah. Let's get through this degree and then we'll see what's next. But I was like, yeah, noted. Here we go. And then that's another thing that's kind of funny that I circled around full circle. Because I remember when I told my mom that I'm starting this O&M program, to get my master's and be in the vision field. And she's like, that's so weird that lady said that to you. What? I think maybe it was 5-6 years ago at the time. And I was like, it's funny how that works. Talk about really full circles. We got a lot of full circles going on here.
Yes. We love the full circle.
Yes.
Yeah.
We love how it works out.
Yeah.
We do. So can you guys tell me a little bit about what you do as what would be a normal day for you? Because I know now you do a lot here, but you also go out into the community with some MOVE students, which are older than 7. Usually they're in elementary, middle school, high
anywhere.
school.
Yep. Anywhere
community
beyond school age. Yeah. So a typical day, so it depends on where I'm starting my day, whether it's at CCVI in someone's home, at a playground, or at a school. All of the above are very viable options. But so it just depends on the day and who I'm working with. So the center-based programming, it's a pull-out method. So I would go to a classroom like Kelsey's and I would pull out a student and we would work on whatever their orientation and mobility goals are. So typically, what I like to say for early intervention, me and some of the other O&Ms, we kind of joke and we say like the O&M starter pack is what a lot of the kids in ECSE are working on, because it kind of starts with body awareness, directional positional concepts, and usually it's kind of intro basic cane skills. You know, you're not going to see a preschooler with like picture perfect cane technique.
Right.
Some of them are pretty good. Yeah, some of them are pretty impressive. Like I won't lie. Some of them have got it going on, but it's always in that introductory stage of learning to use the long white cane. I mean, even historically in the field, a lot of times people didn't even give canes to students until they were quite a bit older. But now that the field is evolving, like Kelsey said, it's the same with O&M. The field is evolving to students with multiple disabilities, students that aren't even mobile, and students especially that are that it's known that their visual impairment is going to impact their travel. And so if it's appropriate for the student, we start working with the long white cane in the home even. So the Missouri First Steps program, it's usually even more basic, ground zero O&M starter pack, working on body awareness, just working on exploring beyond their body, orienting within their home. I mean, I was working with a family the other day on turning on the bathtub and telling them to associate the sound with it's time to take a bath, and traveling towards that sound, or traveling towards the sound of their dad's voice, or crawling, initiating movement. So we don't do as much of that here because a lot of times, I mean, our students are just a little bit older, but that's where it starts. It starts at birth. And then in the community with older students, it's everything is O&M, and O&M is everything is what I like to say. But it's if you consider a visual impairment, and sometimes lighting makes a difference, but we go outside, we practice navigating residential blocks and crossing streets and analyzing intersections, learning public transportation, and even just being in the community, social skills, interacting, going and buying a coffee. How do I find the cash register? How do I find the card slot? And so, and that's the fun part too, is that every student has different challenges. Every lesson addresses different things. It depends on the student's level of visual functioning and what they can do and how they can do it, and how I can help them to give them the skills and the superpowers to get out there and get it done.
Absolutely.
So, and you help parents.
Give
info parents.
Definitely support parents a lot of the times too, with just information on advocacy groups. There's National Federation for the Blind. There's the Rehab Services for the Blind. There's so many different groups and even just resources. Like there's a parent mobility resource website that kind of walks through. It has videos for every cane technique. And so they can provide like enrichment opportunities for parents to practice the skills at home. And it's everything. All of the above.
I feel like even just since like I've started and like learning about O&M, I feel like O&M is like all the things you just normally wouldn't think about.
Exactly.
Like,
The skills that you don't learn incidentally.
That is exactly what it is.
And it's kind of like,
and that's a lot of what TVIs do too. I mean,
it's teaching those skills that are that sighted individuals learn incidentally.
Yeah.
So that's
because you just learn, right? Because when you're growing up and someone's like, oops, the ball rolled behind you, and the kid turns around, oh, it went behind me. But a kid with a visual impairment who's completely blind, they're like, what does behind mean?
Yeah.
What does over, in between, on top? What do those words mean? That they have no abstract understanding of that because they don't have a visual understanding that this table is in front of me. I can move around. My feet are under the table. Those are just words. They don't have meaning without being taught those skills and learning to use their other senses to understand.
And we all learn visually from each other. But when you don't have vision, you have no idea.
Right.
And that's just like, I don't know, to me crazy because I'm not, that's not my specialty.
Yeah.
And like, I now like start thinking of things. I'm like, well, to the left, but like, I guess if you don't know
what does that mean?
What is left?
Yeah.
Exactly. Because it's not a thing you can tell. It's just like
it's
a
word.
concept.
It's a phrase.
Exactly. And then I remember someone told me the story about someone one of their students didn't understand what pouring a glass was.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I guess that is something you would just see your mom pouring you some orange juice.
Let me pour you some juice. Right. And you can see you're pouring it.
Right.
Yeah. It's just, the small things.
So then they would have to feel. They have to feel, okay, we're going to pour some soil into this pot for this plant. So they're feeling it pour out.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's a good example. I like that.
That one really stuck with me because I was like, that's just such like a common thing. You fill something up.
It's an abstract concept.
Right. And it really is. But I like putting that in perspective so then maybe other people become more aware.
That's a great example.
Thank you. And I just think too, again, like making people more aware, not just that, but like you said something about like depending on their visual impairment, like with the cane and everything. But I feel like when people see a white cane, they're like, oh, you're blind, like completely
blind.
Dark,
right,
blind, you can't see anything,
right. But which is not the case.
Yeah, which is not the case. So
which is not the case
vision,
most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, they have some vision, whether it's a pocket of vision or a little bit of vision,
or
a
shadows,
field,
mm-hmm.
or they see shadows or figures. It's very, very rare that people that there's nothing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just that cane is that symbol. Like, I can maybe see, maybe I can't, but like, I do need this to guide me.
Right. I am a traveler with a visual impairment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it, like I said, it could be that outside in the sunlight causes complete blindness,
mm-hmm.
or if it's a cloudy day. Sometimes people struggle more, and sometimes it helps even more. So that's just kind of like Kelsey said, it's such a variety and such a specified field, but a variety of visual impairments that impact travel. And that's where all our fun services come in.
Right.
Yeah.
Kelsey's day looks a little bit different, but
so teachers of the visually impaired, I'm a teacher of the visually impaired in our full day classroom. So I have the kindergarten to like 7-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And TVIs and O&Ms work closely together.
We need each
like
other.
They're one and the same.
Yeah.
But our day is a typical day in a classroom. We, have circle time. We do literacy, math. Our real focus is the expanded core curriculum, though, the ECC. So there's 9 areas of the ECC that we try to touch on a daily basis. That's the curriculum per se for our visually impaired students. It's not a curriculum in itself. It's more like a framework. Like they want guidelines. Yeah.
Sarah Burke gave a really good analogy. She was saying like the core curriculum is like the dinner.
Yes.
And then the expanded curriculum is like the salt. Just kind of enhances it and like adds these extra skills.
I love that.
That is perfect.
And O&M is part of that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, it is.
O&M is also the salt.
Yes.
Maybe
so within the classroom, we do a lot of sensory. We do Braille. We do tactile exploration. There's all sorts of things we do in the classroom. But my day is just center based right now. Just in the classroom. But before, I was itinerant in the district. So I also have that experience of traveling around to different schools and popping in and leaving. And it's just hard as an itinerant TBI too, because you're only there for a certain amount of time. And then you have to leave and travel to the next school and the next student. So that is difficult, but that's why those relationships with their teacher is so important, because you can form that bond, you can form that connection and really work with the child.
Do you kind of miss going out and like traveling around the schools? Are you?
I thought I would miss it, but I don't. I really don't miss it.
It's kind of nice being in one place.
Yeah,
sure.
It's
predictable.
I did it for
You at least know when you're.
I did it for 2 years.
Yeah.
I traveled for 2 years when I was with Independence, and it just got mundane, and it just got
like routine.
Yes, I just need something different, and here it's different every day. Like you don't know you don't know how the kids are going to come in, what mood they're going to be in. You don't know.
See, for me, I'm the opposite because O&M skills we want to teach a lot in familiar or semi-unfamiliar environments, and so we work on the skills in familiar environments, and then I just can't wait to like get out and analyze an intersection. And I mean, even when working in schools, it's like we travel away from their what they know, and that's when you see number one, you see the skills that they actually do have, and they're a little bit less comfortable per se, and in an environment that's more conducive to learning new skills and things they don't necessarily have exposure to on a regular basis. So
it's a good mix of both.
I feel like no matter where you are,
I totally
itinerant, center based.
Sometimes I think back to being a SPED teacher and being like, I was 8 to 4. I was in this classroom, and this is where it all went down, and there's comfort in that too. So that's the beauty of our field, is it kind of has, in such a niche field, we all have our own little homes and what we prefer. And
there's a lot of variety in something so niche.
Yeah, I really like being able to like adapt and modify each thing that I'm doing for each student. Like, you don't have one student that you have to, like, focus in on. Like, you just have all these different students, and you have to adapt what you're doing for all of them. Like, I like that challenge. Being like, okay, so-and-so needs a communication device. How are they going to be able to access this activity?
The day-to-day is just differentiating.
Yeah.
And you come in and you're thinking, okay, this student needs this, this student needs that, and it's it's never going to be the same.
Right.
It's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
That is very true.
Yeah.
That is a very good way to describe it. It's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
Every kid is different simply because they have different personalities and
Different
everything.
needs.
Yeah.
And then
level
different
of
needs,
vision.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what
Yeah.
are you guys' like favorite parts of your job? I know you kind of like I feel like
Yeah,
said a little
yeah.
here and there, but like if you could just like if someone was like interested in being a TBI and you'd be like, okay, this is literally the best part of my job, like what would you tell them to like convince them?
I would say just the best part is being that advocate for them and, telling other people what they need. Like, we have volunteers that come into our classroom and they're like, oh, they've never been here before, so they don't know what to expect. And when we tell them a little snippet of information, they're like, oh, really? Like, you don't expect to come into a classroom and see a blind child and, then their mind is like, how do I work with this child? So I think it's just giving information to other people and being able to share your knowledge with other people. It's just, the job in itself is rewarding because like we said, every day is different. You never get the same thing. It may feel like every day is different, especially being center-based, or every day is the same being center-based. You would think it's the same, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's different every day.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge component, and that was what makes it so rewarding. I would just say, in general, I just love empowering my students and seeing them walk in the door day one, and they might be, extremely hesitant to walk 3 steps on their own, and then, or they cling to their mom and dad's hand for dear life because they're just, which I mean, very, makes sense why they feel that way, but then teaching them the protective techniques that, you can travel and you can extend your hand out in front of your face and you're not going to get hurt, or teaching them to use a cane and then watching them like stop their little bodies when their cane encounters a step or a depth change or a curve, and it's like, oh my gosh, you're getting it, yes. And then they take those skills home and parents tell me, oh my gosh, we went to the park and they used their cane and she was so much more stable and didn't trip and fall over the edges along the playground. And I'm like, yes, this is why I do what I do.
That has to be so rewarding.
Yeah, just the rewarding aspect of empowering them that they can, I mean, there's our
they
students
can
with
do
visual impairment,
anything.
they can do anything just in a different way.
Right.
They're gonna learn different skills and maybe have different tools, like the cane being the most the tool with the largest contribution to their independence when it comes to their travel.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, Braille, teaching them to read, like, hello, they're going to do everything that anyone else is going to do, just in their own way.
It's going to look a little different, but it's the same thing.
Exactly.
And forming those relationships with the kids. Like, that is amazing.
Kind of watching them grow over time and getting to know the families. And then when they send you pictures at their birthday party or invite you. Have that too.
Like, especially over the weekend. Like, after a long weekend and you come back and you're like, hi, so-and-so. And they just, like, have this huge smile on their face because they know it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's special too.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of great things.
We could have a whole episode.
Yeah, we could go on and on.
Going through all of our favorite moments of the year, the past 2 years.
Yes.
That would be perfect. That would make for a good one.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I think
so.
We could just go on and on forever.
For sure.
That's perfect. When are you available?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, I've only been here for a little bit, but I've definitely seen like growth in a few kids, and I'm like,
that's awesome that you can see that.
I know, I'm just like, oh, I'm really proud of you. I know I'm not like down in the classroom.
Yeah,
like
you're
teaching
doing
anything,
it.
But like I'm noticing you.
It makes you feel proud.
It really does.
But when you do come down to the classroom, they love you because they know you have the camera, and they're all like,
I know. I'm just like, you have my phone.
I know. And then swiping on your phone, trying to look at all the pictures.
Some days I'm tempted. I'm like, here, you can just take my phone. Like, do a vlog. I don't know what. Like,
I know.
Right day in the life of a preschooler. I think that would be a really good one.
That would be so fun.
A lot of kids go viral.
That would actually be hilarious. That'd be adorable.
I'll work on that. I'll see how we can like manage. Kelsey, are you open to having some
get like
kids?
a GoPro and like put it on their chest or
Oh
something?
my gosh, that would be the best.
That would. Little, like,
lessons.
That would be
it's like an idea.
GoPro. A GoPro.
I'll add that into our budget.
Yes.
Like, listen, Connor, I have this really good idea.
Yes.
It is necessary.
That would be so fun. That would be so fun.
I'll let you know whenever it works.
Okay. That sounds great.
Perfect. Well, this is one question that I had just because I recently got out of college.
Yeah.
And you guys have kind of had like a long path, a lot of circles and looping back where you ended up.
We like circles.
Yeah.
Yes, we do love circles. But like, what would your advice be to someone who's in college who like maybe doesn't know what they want to do, or like kind of has an idea but just isn't like totally sure? Like, what advice would you give them, like, now that you have gone through and like done several different things and been in different areas, and now you finally found like the place that you like love and belong and like want to stay at? Like, what would you tell somebody?
I would just say find something that you're passionate about. That makes a lot of difference in your workday. And then just finding a specialized field, because if it's a specialized field, you're more likely to want to be there, and you're more likely to want to do the work. If you're going to spend the time and money on a college degree, you might as well find a specialized field. That's good.
Yeah, I would definitely, I mean, just to kind of piggyback off of that, do something that you know is going to make a difference, because the way that you're going to feel, I mean, at the end of your work day, at the end of your work week, if you stared at a computer all day, or if you, which not that you do that, after I said that, I was like, you probably do that a lot, but you're working for an organization that makes a difference, and I think that goes for everyone that works at CCVI. It's not even if you do have a job where you sit at a computer, it's so much more than that, and just consider how your work is going to make you feel, because I just think and it sounds super cliche and probably sound like my grandma, it's like life is short, life is short,
do something you love,
something you love, and something, like I said at the beginning, that doesn't feel like work, do something that lights you up, that makes you happy, that's gonna feel like you accomplished something at the end of the day. And I think just so for me, I mean, not even knowing that O&M was its own separate field, and I feel like we both kind of stumbled upon the vision field, and it was kind of, we learned in passing through other people about the specialized field, because they were like, hey, we need a vision person, and you're like, okay, let's see what this is all about, and then you ended up loving it, which is amazing. And I think a lot of times it's just kind of digging deeper to that next level of, okay, you want to be in this field, well, what, in the field of special education, there's a million different directions and avenues you can take. And I think that goes for every field, right? I mean, marketing obviously is extremely broad, and there's so many things you can do. So it's find something specific that's gonna be personal to you, that you can, that that you're gonna enjoy.
Or that helps when you can advocate for it too.
Yeah.
Instead of just,
you actually
I'm just gonna go sit in front of this computer and do my work.
Yeah. Even though I'm not the only one that feels that way. I don't mean it in a bad way. There are people that do that.
I know.
And love it. But,
But it's different when you're sitting at a computer, but you work for a company.
And the work that you're doing is making contributing to something bigger.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do something bigger than yourself.
Yeah. That's a good one. Okay, that concludes our episode.
All done. Cut.
That was the perfect ending. Oh my gosh. Well, that was so good. Thank you guys for joining me. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or like say before we end? I don't know how long we've been going for, but like this has been a really good conversation.
I know.
I love learning more about you guys and like your field. It's just so interesting to me.
I think we touched on everything.
Yeah. I think, like I said, if we open up a whole new can of worms, we're not going to stop.
So I know.
We'll stop now.
We can cut, but thank you so much for chatting with us.
Yes, it was fun.
It's fun to tell our story and think back and
reminisce
on
see how far
fun times. And
it's always fun to be like, Hannah brought me back, and I brought her into the field.
Yeah. We just kind of tugging each other around. Everywhere we go.
Yeah.
Well, CCVI has benefited from both of you. So, well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.